I'm Cindee Ray.
And I'm Pamela Piquette.
We are Chronic Joy Ministry, sharing life,
Discovering hope. Chronic joy. Chronic means persisting for a long time or constantly recurring, and it has a negative bent. However, joy is a feeling of great pleasure or deep happiness. If your mind isn't quite sure what to make of these two words, chronic joy together, would you just hold that confusion for a few minutes? So, a bit of background to our story. For several years, Cindee and I had this awkward, uncomfortable relationship, solely revolving around conflict resolution between our two young sons, who quite simply could not get along. Cindee is quiet, thoughtful, and a lover of poetry. I am never at a loss for words, and not quite sure I even understand poetry. Jump ahead to October 2008. This is where our story gets interesting.
I walked into church that day needing a friend. The building was uncharacteristically quiet. The only woman there was a woman I had had to apologize to nearly every week that year because of our son's continuing conflicts. But I needed a friend, someone to listen as I tried to make sense of the words I had just heard. You have cancer. My husband was half a world away on business. My father-in-law had recently died from cancer. And my kids needed to know that cancer doesn't always have to be scary. For the next 25 minutes, I poured my story all over this unsuspecting woman.
What if this inconvenience was the start of a friendship that God intended from the beginning? Cindee and I met every week, sharing what we were reading, what God was teaching us, simply sharing life. Only there was nothing simple about Cindee's life. My life had always been relatively ordinary. Yes, there had been challenges with family, health, and finances, but those were nothing like the seemingly impossible, never-stopping, unimaginable things that Cindee would share. Yet even with the magnitude of her life, she held the unwavering belief that God's love was constant, absolute, and what she breathed. She leaned hard on him. He always held firm. This steadfast faith built character qualities like deep peace, prayerfulness, perseverance, strength, not looking too far ahead, breathing deeply, one breath at a time, and something I simply couldn't quite understand, experiencing beauty in the midst of days filled with darkness and unimaginable weight. Being with Cindee allowed me a glimpse of what an encounter with Jesus might be. I simply couldn't stay away.
For years, I wondered why Pamela stayed. My life was consumed by illnesses with names no one has ever heard of. Things like eosinophilic gastroenteritis, pneumothorax, gastroparesis, spontaneous pneumomediastinum, dysautonomia, and Ehlers-Danlos. Some people lost patience with the complications of my life. Some questioned my kids' diagnoses. A few quietly slipped away. But my friend Pamela stayed, constant and consistent like clockwork, someone I could count on. And she didn't shy away from the hard questions, the ones that brought tears, but also perspective. One day, I asked her why she stayed.
Because I see Jesus in you. The harder your life gets, the harder you lean on him. And while I want to be like you, I don't want to go through what you have.
Pamela could see what I couldn't. I was just trying to breathe, and she saw Jesus.
In 2011, I was diagnosed with antibiotic-induced C. diff. For 3 months, I spent an unimaginable amount of time in the bathroom and had a 6-day stay in the hospital where I lost 15 pounds. I was homebound and weak, and eventually received an unusual cure for the acute symptoms. But during those long days, I began to understand what living with a chronic illness was like, and how Cindee's daily life had to focus on the medical needs of her kids. The highlight of those months was the daily encouraging phone call from Cindee.
In December 2014, my girls spent back-to-back weeks at Children's Hospital for continued rounds of DHE, something my 14-year-old called Hell Week. DHE is a treatment for some of their worst symptoms, 10 infusions, 8 hours apart, and it makes them incredibly sick, like chemo. While there, we saw the geneticist for the results of our daughter's genetic sequencing. He diagnosed not only her, but 3 of her siblings, and me, with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos. I had passed all these illnesses onto my kids. One afternoon, my 15-year-old daughter asked, "Mom, if you had known, would you have had all of us?" How do you even answer a question like that? Would I have had all 5 of my amazing kids if I had known? Honestly, no. But wow, am I glad that choice wasn't mine. There is nothing straightforward or simple or easy about this life we live. Raising 4 teens in early 20s with significant life-altering illness is harder than anything I have ever done. But it has also taught me how vital hope is. For when I am completely empty, depleted beyond any ability of my own, God fills.
In 2014, my ordinary life quickly disintegrated. My 17-year-old, vivacious, never-stops-moving daughter began to experience intense headaches, severe nausea, and overall worsening health. By July, she'd been referred to a neurologist who specializes in dysautonomia, something I shouldn't know anything about, but I do. By 2015, I wasn't well. I had back pain, migraines more often and with worsening intensity, and I was so very tired. But it was winter. It'll pass, I told myself, and didn't give it much thought. In May, we saw a geneticist who diagnosed my daughter with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos. He told me she'd inherited it from me, and then diagnosed me too. Now, I understood the reason I was never able to completely recover from my illness 4 years earlier.
When I heard Pamela's news, all I could think was, oh God, you knew all these years, and you knew. The only words my heart could form were words from the book of Esther. For such a time as this, we are friends for such a time as this.
God orchestrated our illnesses, our friendship, our learning to lean on Him for such a time as this.
What if illness, the stripping away of our health, our dreams, our understanding of who we are and what our future holds, is a gift? God offering Himself to us unencumbered by so much noise, by the things that clutter our hearts and so easily become idols. What if we are looking at it all wrong? What if it's those who are most ill who are really most blessed? Because what if that is where hope is? Learning to see God right here, right now, right where we are, in every hard, beautiful, precious moment.